a Rabbinic Anthology, selected by C.G. Montefiore and H.Loewe. At the end of Herbert Lowe's introduction, I have appended the part that explains the abbreviations, Chapter 14 on prayer. I now proceed to give some quotations about prayer. For prayer became all important when the temple was destroyed and all sacrifices ceased. Sincere prayer brought forgiveness for sin. Well, we see the indication that in absence of a temple or outside of such, prayer was always a part of the life of the prophets that Judaism is supposed to be based upon. And it's very problematic to act like your prayer or even your sacrifices can only happen in one place. It's not just chickens that can be sacrificed. 892, Midrash Psalm on 5:4, 27a, section 7. Thou art not a God who has pleasure in wickedness. Psalm 5:4. Thou hast no pleasure in the guilt of the world, as it is said, God has no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but that he should turn from his way and live. Yea, God seeks that the creatures should pray before him, and he will accept them. Our Isaac said, we have now no prophet or priest, or sacrifices, or temple, or altar, which can make atonement for us, from the day whereon the temple was laid waste. Naught was left to us but prayer. Therefore, O God, hearken and forgive. Midrash Psalm on 5:4, 27a, section 7. Prayer is always acceptable to God, but it should come from the heart. 893, Tanch Bashalach, section 9, folio 111a, C selection 948, or just listen to the programs in order. And the children of Israel feared and cried unto the Lord. Exodus 14:10. I think Lord is a stand-in for God as a verb and noun. When they saw Pharaoh approach, they betook themselves to their ancestors' weapons. When Abraham was in need, he cried upon the name of the Lord, Genesis 13:4, increasing existence. So, too, Isaac prayed in the field, Genesis 24:63, and Jacob prayed at night, Genesis 28:11. For prayer, the weapon of the mouth, is mighty. Why is Israel called, thou worm, Jacob? Isaiah 41:14. The worm's only weapon is her mouth, but with it she fells mighty cedars. Tanch Bashalach, section 9, folio 111a, C selection 948. 894, Sephra, Deuteronomy, Aktab. Is it Jacob? Is that what that stands for? Section 41, folio 80a, H page 88, and CR selection 903. To serve the Lord your God with all your heart, Deuteronomy 11:13, established instead of Lord. What is a service with the heart? It is prayer. So for Deuteronomy, Aktab, section 41, folio 80a, H page 88, C 903. To serve is also study. As the tending of the altar is called service, so both study and prayer are service. 895. Why is the prayer of the righteous like a rake? As the rake turns the grain from place to place, so the prayer of the righteous turns the attributes of God from the attribute of wrath to the attribute of mercy. Yeb 64a. Satanic Front calls its logo the sign of the rake. The power of prayer is boundless. 896, 10 DBL, page 107. If so, one might say, a man were to ask for the whole world in 1 hour, it would be granted him. As it says, ask of me, I will give thee the uttermost parts of the earth. Psalm 2, verse 7 and 8, 10 DBL, page 107, 897, Exodus R, Tetzaweh 38:4. The congregation of Israel says, we are poor, we have no sacrifices to bring as a sin offering. God replies, I need only words. As it says, take with you words. Hosea 14:2. Words mean words of the law. The congregation says, we do not know anything. We are not learned. God replies, weep and pray, and I will receive you. Exodus R, Tetzaweh 38:4. 898, Pesach 158a. God says to Israel, I bade you pray in the synagogue, in your city, but if you cannot pray there, pray in your field, and if you cannot pray there, pray on your bed, and if you cannot pray there, then meditate in your heart and be still. Notes 20d and 43, Pesach 158a. 899, Midrash Psalm on 61:2, 153b, section 2. How long must a man persist in prayer? R. Judah said, till his heart faints. As it says, a prayer of an afflicted one when he faints. Psalm 102:1. Midrash Psalm on 61:2, 153b, section 2. 900, TJ Bear 1, section 1, folio 2b, line 1. R. Johanan said, would that man could pray all day, for a prayer never loses its value. RT, page 368, TJ Bear 1, section 1, folio 2b, line 1. 901, Midrash Psalm on 65:2, 156b, section 2, Exodus R, Beshalach 21:4, and see our selections 75 and 76. O thou that hearest prayer, unto thee shall all flesh come. Psalm 65:2. Why does it say all flesh and not all men? The wise have used this verse to teach that man's prayer is heard only if he makes his heart soft as flesh. A human king can hearken to 2 or 3 people at once, but he cannot hearken to more. God is not so, for all men may pray to him, and he hearkens to them all simultaneously. Remember the gender neutrals here. Man's ears become satiated with hearing, but God's ears are never satiated with hearing. He is never wearied by men's prayers. Midrash Psalm on 65:2, 156b, section 2, Exodus R, Beshalach 21:4, see selections 75 and 76. 902, Midrash Psalm on 88:4, 190b, section 2. In the morning my prayer comes before thee. Psalm 88:13. R. Phinehas said the angel who is appointed to prayer, i.e. a sort of heavenly secretary of state for the department of prayer, waits till the Israelites in the last synagogue have finished their prayers, and then he takes all the prayers and makes them into a chaplet and places them upon God's head, as it says, blessings are upon the head of the just, that is, upon him who is the life of the worlds, who lives forever. Proverbs 10:6, Midrash Psalm on 88:4, 190b, section 2. One of the things that you find in the Islamic tradition and some others is that there's angels of good deeds. They're there to witness and take part in the good deeds that people do. And if things are repeated or otherwise expected, they show up. Our presence without being invoked because something is regular. So you don't want to, it's better to start something small and continue something small than do something big and, lead that. But, anyways, 903, Midrash Psalm on 66.1, 157b, section 1, selection 894. R. Johanan said, "What is the service of God? Prayer." Midrash Psalm on 66.1, 157b, section 1, c. 894, 904, Ta'an to A finish, Malter, page 6. It says, to love the Lord your God and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, Deuteronomy 11:13. Service is prayer. You say it is prayer. May it not be sacrificial. Service? No, Scripture says, with all your heart. What service is that of the heart? You must say that it is prayer. To on to a finished, Malter 6, page 6. H.L.'s note, the words in brackets, sacrificial and services prayer, do not occur in the Talmudic passage cited. Although Malter includes them, they are to be found in the parallel in Sephra, Deuteronomy, Aqab, section 41, folio 80A, page 88, and that's H.L.'s note. So from services prayer to services out of the heart, and further brackets for sacrificial, but 905, TJRH2, section 6, folio 58b, line 10, Archia of Palestine entered the synagogue to pray. Archahana from Babylon entered after him and stood behind him to pray also. When Archia had finished his prayer, he sat down to wait till Archahana had finished, so as not to pass Archahana while he was praying. He prolonged his prayer, and when at last he finished, Archia said to him, "Is it the custom with you thus to trouble your rabbis?" Archia said, "I am of the house of Eli, and it is written about the house of Eli, the iniquity of the house of Eli shall not be expiated, either with sacrifice or with offerings forever." 1 Samuel 3:14. It shall not be expiated by sacrifices or offerings, but it shall be expiated by prayer. Then Archia prayed for him, and to Archahana was given the privilege of becoming so old that his nails became as red as those of a young child. See RT, page 122, TJRH2, section 6, folio 58b, line 10. Now, there's a lot of this fake ancestry stuff. Like, for example, the Nasi of Israel right now is from the fake tribe of Dan through the Ga'an of Vilna. He's not Semitic, it's Khazarian. And Sephardic comes from Khazarian too, because they trace them up towards that area of, around Ukraine too. So but they've been, they went to the south, and so they got a little bit darker, but they're not, and so otherwise there would have been fake ancestry. So you don't know, but considering if it's a Talmudic reference and it refers to this first century and all that, maybe it really was somebody who descended from that line. The pious rabbis, in full sincerity of heart, believed that if God did not answer a prayer, it was because the request, if granted, would not have been for the asker's good. Indeed, it is the mark of the true Israelite not to murmur if the request be denied. Now let us remember that the term Israelite means one who strives for God. (906) Tanch B. Toledot 67b. See selection 214 and 304. When Isaac blessed Jacob, he said, "May God, Elohim, give thee of the fatness of the earth." Genesis 27:28. May God, Elohim, give thee means, may he give thee according to the attribute of justice. If it is fitting for thee, he will give it thee. If it is not fitting for thee, he will not give it thee. Or you could say maybe he gives at a different time than, right now, right? But to Esau he said, "Thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth." Genesis 27:39. Whether he were righteous or wicked, God would give him that. For Isaac thought, Esau is wicked, but as for the righteous Jacob, if he fulfills the commandments and yet is chastened, he will not accuse the attribute of justice. But as for the wicked, if he executes a single commandment or prayer and is not answered, he says at once, "Even as I prayed before an idol and found no response, so have I prayed before God and found no response." So Solomon prayed, if an Israelite comes to the temple and prays, give him what he asks, if it is fitting for him, and if it is not fitting, do not grant it. And he also said, give to every man, i.e. every Israelite, according to his ways. 1 Kings 8:39. But if a foreigner comes and prays, give to him whatever he asks, even as it says, do according to all that the foreigner calls to thee for. 1 Kings 8:43. For if not, he will say, this is Solomon's temple, and I have come from one end of the earth to the other, and I have grown weary in my journeyings. And I have come and prayed in this temple, and I have found no response, even as I found no response before any idol. That is why Isaac made a difference between what he said to Esau and to Jacob, for Esau was wanting in faith, while Jacob was a past master of faith and righteous. See note 78, Tanch B. Toledot 67b. See selection 214 and 304. And, because we saw in the last narration that these Archia and our Kahana prayed, and this person became so old that his nails grew red like a young child. What does that mean, anyways? Does that mean that he's so decrepit things are falling apart? Or is that thing where your lungs or your heart are starting to give out and it shows on your fingernails? 907, Psalm 22a. Simeon the pious said, in his prayer a man should think that the Shekinah is before him. Psalm 22a, that the Shekinah is the presence. So, the angelic presence. But it can be there without you witnessing to it. So you want to be able to witness it and it be there. And I'm not sure if I read the other, so I'm going to read this part again. I may go back and edit these because of interruptions and stuff. But this is a very curious instance of rabbinical indifference to what is the actual sense of the biblical narrative. For when Isaac said, "May God give thee of the fatness of the earth," he thought he was blessing not the wicked deceiver Jacob, but Esau. Yet, to the rabbis, Jacob is righteous, Israel, while Esau represents wicked Rome, the wicked nations. So the cruel deceptions of Jacob are ignored entirely. 908, Sifra, Deuteronomy, Wa et Chanan, section 29, folio 7, D1b, RT, page 148, finish H, page 46 and 47. When Moses prayed to God that he might enter the promised land, God said, "Let it suffice thee. Speak no more unto me of this matter." Yet did Moses not cease to seek compassion from God. How much less should the rest of mankind cease to keep on praying? Words left out. 1 hour in prayer is better than good works, not because of his good works was it said to Moses, "Go up and view the land," but because of his supplication. Sefer Deuteronomy, Wa'at Chanan, section 29, folio 71b, RT, page 148, finish H, page 47 and 46, 909, Tunch B, Tazau, 8, 9a. In the law of the sacrifices, it says, if a man has a bullock, let him offer a bullock. If not, let him offer a ram, or a lamb, or a pigeon. And if he cannot afford even a pigeon, let him bring a handful of flour. And if he has not even any flour, let him bring nothing at all. But come with words of prayer. Hosea 14:2, Tunch B, Tazau 8:9a. 910, Exodus R, Beshalach 21:4. R Judah B. Shalom said, if a poor man comes and pleads before another, that other does not listen to him. If a rich man comes, he listens to and receives him at once. God does not act thus. All are equal before him, women, slaves, rich and poor. Exodus R, Beshalach 21:4. As we have already heard, prayer needs kawana, concentration of mind, direction towards God, collectedness, calm. 911, Arub 65a, Rab said, he whose mind is not quieted should not pray. Archanina was wont not to pray when he was irritated. Arub 65a. 912, Midrash Psalm 108, 1, 232a, section 1. R. Samuel B. Nachmana said, if you have directed your heart in prayer, be assured that your prayer will be heard by God. Midrash Psalm 108:1, 232a, section 1. 913, Canticles R 8, section 11, 2 on 8:13, folio 41b. See selection 965. It is written in Canticles 8:13, O thou that dwellest in the gardens, thy companions have hearkened to thy voice. Cause me to hear it. In brackets, the Midrash takes the dweller in the gardens to be Israel. When the Israelites are gathered together in their synagogues and read the Shema with reverent intention and in unison and with one mind and one intention, then God says, thou that dwellest in the gardens, when thou readest thus as one band Then I and my retinue, familia, hearken to thy voice. But when the Israelites read the Shema with distracted minds, not in unison, some before the others and some after, and with no reverent intention, then the Holy Spirit cries out, "Flee away, my beloved." Canticles R 8, section 11, 2 on 813, folio 41b, see selection 965. The form familia from famulus is also used in Hebrew. See selection 965, and that right there is H.L.'s note. God's familia are the angels. The beloved is God. Here again, the Holy Spirit and God are artlessly distinguished. See note 50. 914, Bear 5.1, see page 349, TJ Bear 5.1, folio 8D, line 22. One must not stand up to say the tefillah except in a serious frame of mind. The pious men of old used to wait an hour and then say the tefillah in order to direct their hearts to their Father in heaven. Bear 5.1, page 349, TJ Bear 5.1, folio 8D, line 22. The tefillah is the statutory daily prayer of the 18 benedictions. See prayer book, page 44. 915, Ta'an 8a, Malter, page 52. R. Emma said, man's prayer is not accepted unless he puts his heart in his hands. Ta'an 8a, Malter, page 52. 916, T.J. Bear 4, section 1, folio 7a, line 50. Prayer needs kavanah. CRT, page 186, T.J. Bear 4, section 1, folio 7a, line 50. 917, XSR Bachelich 22.3. A man must purify his heart before he prays. XSR Bachelich 22.3. 918, Yeb 105b. Let him who prays cast his eyes downwards, but turn his heart upwards. Yeb 105b. 919, R. Elazar said, always let a man test himself. If he can direct his heart, let him pray. If he cannot, let him not pray. Bear 30b. 920, T.J. Bear 318, Z page 8, note 65, line 11 of Z page 8, RT page 186. If a man is riding on a donkey and the time for prayer comes, if there is anyone who can hold his donkey, let him get off and pray, but if not, let him remain on the donkey and pray. See selection 419, said, in either case, let him remain on the donkey and pray. The only important thing is that his heart should be directed. T. Bear 318, Z page 8, line 11, note 65, RT, page 186. In the Islamic tradition, there's talk about the travel prayer and such things. 921, T. Bear 27Z, page 4, line 6, note 65, RT, page 117, 118. A load carrier, even when the burden is on his shoulders, may recite the Shema, but while he is either putting on or taking off the load, he may not recite it because he cannot direct his heart, i.e. properly fix his attention upon the prayer. The Amidah he may not say, literally he may not pray, until he has taken off his load. T. Bear 27, Z page 4, line 6, note 65, RT page 117, 118. The words, because he cannot direct his heart, show that the fundamental condition of prayer was never forgotten. Then there are various technical reasons for the distinction made between the Shema and the Amidah. Moore gives an excellent account of rabbinic views about prayer, 2, page 212 to 225, and H.L.'s note, the Shema may be repeated while walking by the way or lying down. The Amidah must be recited erect and standing to attention. And that's H.L.'s note. Prayer can be long or short. Its length is no guarantee of its excellence. 922, Bear 61a, R. Me'er said, a man's words should always be few towards God. Ecclesiastes 5:2, Bear 61a. 923, Mek Wayasa Beshalach, Section 1, page 155, Mek Volume 2, page 91, Sifra Numbers, Beha Oloteka, Section 105, Folio 28b, H, page 104. And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree, etc. Exodus 15:25. Hence, you can learn that the righteous have no difficulty in getting their prayers answered, and incidentally, you may learn also that the prayers of the righteous are short. It happened once that a disciple was reading the Amidah in the presence of R. Eliezer, and he curtailed his benedictions. The other disciples said, Master, do you see how he has shortened the benedictions? And they mocked him and said, here is a disciple of the wise, who is a shortener. But Rabbi Eliezer said, he has not been shorter than Moses, who said, heal her, O Lord, I pray. Numbers 12:13. And another one, on another similar occasion, prolonged the benedictions, and the disciples said, Master, did you notice him, how he prolonged his benedictions? And they called him the prolonger. But R. Eliezer said, he did not prolong more than Moses, who said, I fell down in prayer before the Lord for 40 days and 40 nights. Deuteronomy 9:18. For Moses said to himself, there is a time to shorten and a time to prolong. Mek Wayasa Beshalach, Section 1, page 155, Mek Volume 2, page 91, Sifra Numbers Beha Orateka, Section 105, Folio 28b, H, page 104. Lauterbach, in his edition and translation of the Melkilta, has a different explanation of the first part of this sentence. 924, Mek Beshalach, Section 3, page 97, Mek Volume 1, page 216. And the Lord said to Moses, wherefore criest thou unto me? Exodus 14:15. R. Eliezer said, God said to Moses, my children are in trouble. The sea shuts them off on one side, the enemy pursues them on the other, and you stand and make long prayers. God said, there is a time to lengthen prayer and a time to shorten it. Mek Beshalach, Section 3, page 97, Mek, Volume 1, page 216. 925, Bear 32b, Cohen, page 215. Archia B. Abba said, in the name of R. Johanan, whoever prolongs his prayer and calculates on it, i.e. anticipates its fulfillment as a reward for its length, will eventually come to pain of heart. Bear 32b, Cohen, page 215. 926, T. Bear 37, see page 6, line 13, note 65. R. Akiba, when he prayed with the congregation, was short. When he prayed by himself, you could leave him on one side of the room and find him on the other because of his genuflections and prostrations. T. Bear 37, Z, page 6, line 13, note 65. Prayers should be spontaneous. 927, T.J. Bear 4, Section 3, Folio 38a, line 64. See Loon's Text, Folio 45b, for a different reading. Prayer should not be recited as if a man were reading a document. R. Etcha said, a new prayer should be said every day. T.J. Baer for Section 3, Folio 38a, line 64. 928. Baer for 4, Baer 29b, T.J. Baer for Section 4, Folio 7a, line 23, Abbott 218, per book, page 190. Also, our selections 948, 949, 952, 1112. R. Eliezer said, if a man makes his prayer a fixed task, Kepa, his prayer is no supplication. So the Mishnah, the Gemara, asks, what means Kepa? Or is it Kepa? R. Jacob B. Adeh said, in the name of R. Oshea, anyone whose prayer seems to him a burden. The rabbis say, anyone who does not recite it in the language of supplication. Rabbah and Reb Joseph both said, anyone who is not able to add something new thereto. Baer 4, Baer 29b, T.J. Baer 4, Section 4, Folio 7a, line 23, Abbott 218, per book, page 80. Also the selections 948, 949, 952, 1112. And Lowe's note, fixed task. Keba is here used in a bad sense because mechanical prayers uttered by rote are valueless. Well, they have some value, but they lose a lot of it without the true devotion and stuff. But the word can be used in a good sense also. Abbott 218, where it declares that prayers must not be keba. Compliments 115, which declares that study should be keba. Regularity in study is essential. For prayer, one should have a fixed or regular place. Baer 7b. The root is used in connection with regular sleep, a regular meal, or a regular place of burial. Prayer, too, was to be regular in the sense that it was not to be causal. There was a communal obligation devolving on the individual Israelite to recite daily to the glory of God the prayer, i.e. the Tefillah, Section 914, see that. Also called the Amidah, or standing, see selection 921. But it must be fresh, see selection 927, and it should contain supplications, i.e. private petitions or meditations, also called tachanunim, etc., are repeated in silence. An example will be found at the end of the Amidah, per book, page 54, the paragraph beginning, "Oh my God," which is never said aloud. The term tachanunim, tachanun, tachanot, etc., does not happen to be used in Singer on page 57. It will be found in the corresponding part of the service in Paul's prayer book, see page 61. The leader in prayer had to mention certain subjects in a certain order, but the formulation was left to him. Some phrases were regarded as essential, thus the great, the mighty, and the awful God, for which there was Mosaic authority. See page 357. Exaggerated adjectives were depreciated. See 927, 929, 928 as our selections. This way, the services tended to acquire stability without the sacrifice of spontaneity. The writing down of blessings was also depreciated. It was tantamount to burning the Torah. See above our selection 350. But in course of time, this step was inevitable. According to Tunch, Shemot 2, 81b. The men of the great synagogue expanded existing benedictions, and the context, especially their association with the passage cited from Nehemiah, suggests that the men of the great synagogue and the prototypes of the benedictions were of early date. The writing down of the Mishnah involved the writing down of the blessings and to a large extent stabilized the liturgy. But the final stage, initial, when viewed from another standpoint, belongs to the Gaonic age with the prayer books of Amram and others. And that's H.L.'s note. Quaint is this, 929, Bear 24b. He who makes his voice heard during prayer is of the small of faith. Our Rab Huna said, this teaching applies only to one who is able to direct his heart when whispering, the words of prayer. But if he is unable to do so, he is permitted to pray aloud. This holds good only of one praying alone, but with a congregation it would cause disturbance to others. Bear 24b. And there is some similarity in the Islamic tradition in that you don't make your prayer louder or quieter or longer or shorter because people being there. But of course you don't, the obliged prayer, that is done out loud, but it's not done too loud or too quiet anyways. And you should pray in lengths that you're going to be able to do and that sort of stuff. But as far as other people show up or not, that shouldn't be the thing, right? And obviously, when you're praying in a group and you're being led, you're obviously not raising your voice to the point of the person leading. And H.L.'s note, moderation is to be observed. Absolute silence may lead to the slurring over of prayers or to inattention. Hence, the ears must hear what the lips utter. Bear 13a. Well, saying it out loud is part of the experience of it as well. I.e., the words must be spoken distinctly, though not loudly, so as to disturb others, and a pause must be made when one word begins with the same consonant as that with which the previous one ended. They must not be run together. See 15b and 15a of Bear. But kawana is essential. 16a. It is interesting to observe that the Hebrew word to read, ara, also, and no doubt originally meant to call out, thus pointing to the audible reading as being general. Of Augustine it is told that, quite by accident, he discovered the art of reading inaudibly, to the amazement of his pupils, who noticed that his lips moved not, and no sound issued from them. Whether this story has any foundation, I am unable to say. Sometimes silent prayer can be misunderstood. Hannah was accused of drunkenness, yet the highest service is the service of the heart. 894. For to thee, O silence is praise. Psalm 65:2, and that's H.L.'s note. Thank God is prayer. Now let us also remember that there are conditions like autism and illness that can make speaking harder, whether because of the overall circumstances or something else, right? 930, Leviticus R, Tazau, 9:7, Midrash Psalm 56:12, 148a, section 4. R Phinehas, R Levi, R Johanan, in the name of R Menachem of Galilee, said, in the time to come all other sacrifices will cease, but the sacrifice of thanksgiving will not cease. All other prayers will cease, but thanksgiving will not cease. Leviticus R, Tazau, 9:7, Midrash Psalm on 56:12, 148a, section 4. One must pray for others as well as for oneself. One must pray with Israel in the synagogue. 931, Bear 12b. Rab said, whoever has it in his power to pray on behalf of his neighbor and fails to do so is called a sinner. Bear 12b. 932, bear 8a. God says, if a man occupies himself with Torah, practices benevolent acts, and prays with the congregation, I will ascribe it to him as though he had redeemed me and my son Israel from exile among the peoples of the world. Bear 8a. It must be remembered that the community of Israel and even each local congregation were more important to the rabbis, and as they believed more important even to God than any individual Israelite. The rabbis never abandoned the collective point of view of the Old Testament. Tanakh is actually a different order than what's called Old Testament, but even though they had also adopted and intensified the later individualism, the community of Israel, Klal Yisrael, forms a sort of real, if mystical personality. It is because the community is known to and beloved by God that God knows and loves each individual who composes it. 933 T bear 14 Z page 1 line 11. R. Judah said, I once walked behind R. Akiba and R. Elazar, B. Azariah, and the time came for saying the Shema, and it seemed to me that they forbore to say it, because they were engaged on affairs of the community. T. Bear 14, see page 1, line 11. The last quotation induces me to add some extracts about the community and its service. See selection 859, or just watch these programs in order, or listen to them. This thing before you is not really much of a show, right? 934, Tunch Wa et Chanan, section 36, folio 313a. Moses said to God, I am one and Israel is 600,000. Often have they sinned, and I have prayed for them. And thou hast forgiven them. Thou hast regarded for the 600,000. There's some other meaning to that could indicate much smaller number, but wilt thou not have regard to me? God replied, the doom of a community cannot be compared with the doom of an individual. Tunch Wa et Chanan, section 36, folio 313a. 935 T. Shuk 16Z, page 174, line 5. The sacrifices of the community are acceptable to God and make atonement between Israel and its Father in heaven. T. Shuk 16Z, page 174, line 5. Now just remember that father thing, center, provider. I think that's also literally in the term. We don't even have to go figuratively because of the different meanings of the word. 936, Sifra, Numbers, Penachas, section 135, folio 51a, H page 181. God does not reject the prayer of the multitude. Sifra Numbers, Penachas, section 135, folio 51a, H page 181. 937, bear 8a initial, 949. In an acceptable time, Psalm 69:13. When is that? When the community prays. Bear 8a initial, see selection 949. 938, bear 32a. Get thee down, Exodus 32:7. What does this mean? R. Elazar said, God spake to Moses, get you down from your greatness. I gave you greatness only because of Israel. Now that Israel has sinned, what art thou to me? Bear 32a. 939, Tunch B. Nitzabim 25a, bear 49b. Israel will be redeemed only when it forms one single band. When all are united, they will receive the presence of the Shekinah, Therefore Hillel said, Abbot 2.5, separate not thyself from the community. Tunch B, Sabine 25a, Bear 45b. 940, Ta'an 11a, Malter 74, Tan DB L 112, 228. The rabbis teach, when Israel is in trouble and one among them separates himself, the two angels of the service who accompany a man lay their hands on his head and say, this man who has separated himself from the community shall not see its consolation. And it is taught, if the community is in trouble, a man must not say, I will go to my house and eat and drink, and peace shall be with thee, O my soul. But a man must share in the trouble of the community, even as Moses did. He who shares in its troubles is worthy to see its consolation. Ta'an 11a, Malter 74, Ta'an DBL, page 112, see selection 228. And just like the last one, separate not thyself from the community. So it was known as a commandment, at least it was considered as such. So one of the things that happens is the sectarian stuff. It's like, okay, well, you silent or you don't agree with the sort of thing, unless they're worshiping something other than God or whatever, you just say the prayers with other people, and you just don't say amen to their extra stuff that they've innovated or whatever the issue is, right? You can take part in what you can take part in and sort of let pass what you're not favoring. 941, Tunch Mishpathim, section 2, folio 127a, finish. When Asa was dying, his nephew saw him weeping. He said, why do you weep? Is there any part of the law which you have not learnt? Your disciples sit before you. Is there any deed of loving kindness which you have not done? And over and above all these qualities, you have kept yourself far from the judge's office, and you have not brought it over yourself to be appointed as an official for the needs of the community. He replied, that is why I weep. Perhaps I shall have to give an account, i.e. be condemned, because I was able to be a judge and did not judge. A man who retires to his house and says, what have I to do with the burden of the community, or with their suits? Why should I listen to their voice? Peace to thee, O my soul. Such a one destroys the world. Tunch Mishpathim, section 2, folio 127a, finish. 942, Sifra Numbers, Penachas, section 138, folio 52a, H, page 184. It is to the praise of the righteous that even when they are on the point of death, they do not think of their own affairs, but concern themselves with the needs of the community. So when God told Moses that he must die, Numbers 27, verses 12 to 14, Moses' immediate concern was that God should appoint a leader in his place. Numbers 27:16. Sifra Numbers, Penachas, section 138, folio 52a, H, page 184. 943, Numbers R, Beha Aloteka, 1520. He who sacrifices himself for Israel is worthy of greatness and the Holy Spirit. Numbers R, Beha Aloteka, 1520. 944, T.J. Bearer 5, section 1, folio 8d, line 43. R. Jeremiah said, he who occupies himself with the affairs of the community is as one who studies the law. T.J. Bearer 5, section 1, folio 8d, line 43. And we start H.L.'s note here. Office was regarded variously as an honor desired by all, as a burden or temptation to be shunned by the prudent, see 1059, as a responsibility not to be evaded by those endowed with a sense of duty. Such differences of outlook are natural at all times and depend on circumstances and temperaments. One of the Hebrew terms for office is rabbanut. This sometimes means government in general. Its etymology naturally suggests the connection with the office of rabbi. Shemaiah, in the time of Herod, taught his disciples to love work and hate office. Abbot 110. See Travers Hereford in location. R. Johanan in the 3rd century reiterated the sentiment in the warning that office buries its holder. Pes 87b, since every prophet survived 4 kings, R. Nehemiah pointed out that the responsibilities of office, the office holder becomes the surety for his fellow, Proverbs 6:1. Before appointment, a scholar, chaber, a carefree when invested with the robe, thalet in office. All the burden of the community is upon him. Should he see a man constraining his neighbor or committing a sin and check him not, he, the official, is punished on his account. For the Holy Spirit proclaims, My son, if thou be surety for thy friend, thou hast then struck thy hand for a stranger. Proverbs 6:1. Exodus R 27:9. Akabiah b. Mahalalel was one of the earliest Tanaim for his state. See Travers Hereford's note to Abbott 3:1. He testified to 4 opinions, i.e. he took an adverse view from his colleagues on 4 points, 2 of which were matters of medical hygiene. His colleagues said, retract these 4 decisions, and we will make thee Ab Bet Din, vice president of the rabbinical court. He replied, better is it for me to be called a fool all my life long than to be made a godless man before God, even for a single hour, so that people shall not say of me, for the sake of office, he went back on his word. Eduyot 5:6. Well, it's not about what people say, it's about what is the case, right? He was excommunicated, possibly in consequence of his firmness, and he died under the ban. But the circumstances are not quite clear. See Travers Hereford's note, cited above. On his deathbed, he said to his son, retract those 4 opinions of mine. His son replied, but why did you yourself not retract, i.e., and to be released from the ban? Akabiah, SC, what's SC? Akabiah answered, I heard those teachings from a majority of authorities, and therefore I am bound to them. My opponents heard their views from a majority of their teachers, and they likewise are bound. But you, my son, have heard these views from me, an individual, and the contrary opinions from a majority, my opponents as well. It is better to abandon the opinion of an individual in favor of the opinion held by the majority, and it shouldn't be about mere opinions either. His son said, Father, commend me to your colleagues. Akabiah replied, Nay, I will not do so. Have you any cause for complaint against me? None, said Akabiah, but it is your own deeds that will prove your commendation or your rejection. Eduyot 5:7, that's H.L.'s note, 945, Exodus R, Yitro 27:9 on 28:1. So long as a man is only a simple chaber, he is not bound to the community. He need not concern himself with its affairs, and he is not punished for its sins. But when he is appointed to a post and receives the thalet of investiture, then he must not say, I am concerned only with my own good. I am not bound to the community. On the contrary, all the burden of the community is upon him. If he sees a man doing wrong to his neighbor or committing a sin, and he does not stop him, he will be punished for his neglect. The Holy Spirit says to him, you are responsible for your neighbor. God says to him, you have entered the arena, and he who enters the arena must either be conquered or conqueror. God says to him, you and I stand in the arena. Either you conquer or I conquer you. Exodus R, Yitro 27:9 on 28:1. And H.L.'s note, the general reader may perhaps need some explanation of the word Cheber, cited above. For his purposes, the excellent article in Levy from which the following references have been extracted will suffice. The word is derived from a root meaning to bind. Its primary meaning is companion, thus Abbott 2:5, judge not thy associate till thou be come into his place. Abbott 2:13, a good companion in Sab 63a top is used of a wife in TJ Shek 3, section 1, folio 47b, line 30, in an academic sense. Ben Azai was the colleague and disciple of Akiba. Hence comes the special use of the word in contradistinction to Haaretz. Is it Am? Because Am would be people. A member of the Brotherhood, scrupulous in tithing and other religious observances. Sometimes the chaper was not a learned man. For example, ye are sages, I am but a cheber. Kid 33b. The four conditions necessary for acceptance as a chaper are specified in T. Dem 2, C, page 107, and that's H.L.'s note. We are on page 354 if CP means the same source here, or maybe the same source, TM2, but that's in parentheses, so we'll probably talk about this. 946, Ruth R. Introduction 6 on 1-2, folio 2a. When the small obey the great, but the great do not carry the burden of the small, God will come to judgment. Ruth R. Introduction 6 on 1-2, folio 2a. 947, which we will continue next time. Sefer Numbers, Beha Oloteka, section 92, folio 25b, 25a, page 93 and 91. About the choosing of the 70 elders, Numbers 11:16, it is said, God said to Moses, first speak to them words of praise. Happy are you that you have been chosen. Then say to those harsh words, know that the Israelites are troublesome and disobedient. On this condition you have been chosen, namely that you suffer them to curse and stone you. The condition I made with thee, I make with them.